Are you ready? Are you ready? All right, here we go. So the first thing you should know about is there's this cool Twitter, Go Bridge, building bridges to educate underrepresented communities to teach technical skills and foster diversity in Go. That's pretty cool. So check that out. And then there's also this Go Forum. And so if you Google the Golang bridge, which is how I found that Twitter deal, right there, obviously, right? But this is a forum. So I guess it's a forum for the Golang bridge to help people. And I posted a question in there. And then this dude, Dave Cheney, who's like, whoa. Like Dave Cheney is like NBA All-Star in Go programming out of Australia. And you see his name, and he's got like an amazing blog. Like Dave Cheney, there we go, right? And here's Dave Cheney, resources for new Go programmers, which is cool, but his blog is just like incredible. And it's like been going since October 2010. And last night I was looking up Dave Cheney, empty struct, right? And there's like this really great article on the empty struct. Like check this article out. Like just go Google it. And basically the empty struct, zero impact on resources. Like if you look at the size of it on the empty struct, so here we're using unsafe size, right? The size, 0, right? So you could use empty structs wherever. Like I was using one last night. I was just like, what kind, I think I remember hearing something about the empty struct, so I looked for it and I read this article. And so that's kind of cool. Versus like if you had, so here's another one, right? Size of that is 0. Versus here, right, some stuff. So this guy, huh?
What would you do with it?
And you'll see it in the code. But I was just looking that up last night. So I posted a topic here, and Dave Cheney responded and gave me the answer. I was like, that's so cool. And I got all excited, and I was like, whoa, wow, thank you so much, thank you. And they're like, that looks like spam. It was like too effusive. So my message got flagged. But what you could do is, the way that could help you, the question I have is go fumped. I wanted to run it recursively, and that's how you would run it recursively, right? So here, is one folder, and so it's going to run in everything in that folder and below, and format all my packages. So there it goes. It's like firing up right now, so it takes a second. We'll come back and see what the results are in a moment. I don't know. I just got to watch the terminal. What are the results? There we go. So just formatted like all of my files. That was like great for me. I was very excited when I learned that. Like I could format like my entire repo at once, and it just fixes all my files. I thought that was fantastic. So this is a cool place, and then there's also in here jobs. So I was looking at that, right? But here's one, Go developers needed in Spain. I thought it was kind of fun. So I emailed the dude for more information.
That would be awesome.
And then if the guy, I said, hey, I'm teaching this, and I've got some really sharp students, and tell me a little bit about the company and the positions, So we'll see if he gets back to us. Next thing, Daniel, you wanted to mention something, and he wanted to mention GitHub Education Pack. If you just Google that, you get it right here, and then Daniel, you could go for it.
So I know probably a lot of people have already looked at the GitHub Education Pack since it gives you GitHub's lowest tier free, which is 5 private repos, which can be useful if you need to do like a class project or something. But some of the stuff in here is really useful for web development as well. For example, DigitalOcean here. They give you $50 in platform credit. DigitalOcean's cloud servers. You just need a Linux server somewhere. You get $50 towards it, which I think their cheapest server is like $5 a month, so you got it for quite a while. Then further down, they've got Namecheap. Get yourself a free URL for a year, along with the SSL certificate needed for HTTPS, which can be quite useful. And then they also got things like email. So if you need to send out mass emails, they got SendGrid's pretty good at that compared to just trying to do it yourself. And then Stripe. Stripe's, we'll probably be going over Stripe later on in the semester, but it's payment. You need someone to buy something from your website, Stripe's a good one for that. And so if you're in GitHub Education, they'll wipe the fees on the first $1,000 for what you sell.
And you get 5 private repos, so you can start keeping your code private on GitHub, and they don't charge you for that.
Yeah, GitHub will give you 5 private repos.
It's not just students either. Like they gave me, because I'm a teacher, like private repos for free for a year or something. Because we don't get paid enough. For the amount of work we do, are you kidding me? Yes, question. I love it. I think, hold on, let's commemorate this moment, because I think this is like the first question of the semester.
True. Sign up for this, I'm assuming you just need a .edu email?
Yes.
Yeah, and it does cost $20, but you just pay that to me directly.
Here's a notice though, when I signed up, it did take a little while for them to get me my information. So
it takes them a couple days to a week to confirm.
It was actually longer.
Oh,
I might have been at a bad time, but they did finally get back to me.
Yeah.
I did contact support. I think they lost my info somewhere.
I mean, it literally was like a while before I got it. But.
So yeah, if you want that signed now, it'll take a while for it to go through.
So we're in week 11 of we're in week 10 of the semester, because you guys are 1 week behind City College. We're in week 10 of the semester, and we're on, right about here, day 12 of the boot camp. So just kind of like, we're doing pretty good. But I also feel like I'm running in front of a bunch of bulls. I feel like I'm kind of like in Pamplona, what is it, running with the bulls, right? That entire thing. Is it Pamplona? Where is it? It's Pamplona? What? You guys don't know that? Cultural education, Hemingway, Sun Also Rises? No, all right. Well, if you get that job in Spain being a Go developer, you'll become familiar with it. But I do feel like I'm kind of like trying to outrace. It's always like a rush to try to get, I don't know. I'm not like, 4 weeks ahead in this class of material ready to go. Like last night at 10 o'clock is like, crap, I got to prep. I've prepped nothing for class tomorrow. So anyhow, this is where we're at. So we're still doing good, even though it's a race, and we got a bunch of bulls or a tidal wave right behind us. And we are not going to see today projection queries or email, because this Twitter example is kicking my butt. But it's kicking my butt in a really good way. And that was kind of like the boot camp too. It's like, oh my God, you want us to do all of that, like bring everything together and build this. And for me, it's a pretty hard project. And then how can I do it right? And once we get that nailed, then we could start to look again at some of these additional things. But I want to nail that. So that's what's on the docket for today. And I'll just show you kind of the end result, and then we'll step back and look at how I got there. And I think I just want to say that one of the things Caleb Doxey shared was like, it gets messy. When you do web programming, it's like it's cool. It'd be great to have a clean code and good abstraction, and it all makes sense and it's all organized. But web programming gets messy, and that's like one of the things. Those weren't his exact words, but something very similar to that he shared. And so I don't know if I have the right answer. Like it works, but maybe there's a better way to do it. So I was thinking that might actually be an assignment for you to look at this code and how would you make it better, and then come back and be ready to share that. So this is how I do it. All right. So this is where I called Daniel. I called Daniel last time. Like, man, can you help me code? He's busy or asleep.
Yeah.
Which is a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing to collaborate with somebody and do pair programming and just get that back and forth in many minds, often a better result. But it's also good to just take a problem and like have the luxury of time by yourself to really struggle with it and research it and learn about it in the docs. I don't know why I have a little bit of paranoia that like this won't work. So far, so good. So with the templating, I wanted to be able to see user information, and I have my so like, okay, you're logged in here. Let me display information about you, and let me carry that across pages. And my header is a template in and of itself, which is then included into whatever page template is running. So, I put that both into my header and down here. And one of the things that I figured out last night, which, oh yeah, I totally forgot that, is when I, run something, like if I run this page template, and then that page template's going to call the header template, I have to take my data, which I passed into, template execute on the page, and then take that and put a little dot when I say, this template's going to be on the header template. So we'll see that. But, I could come over here and the same old deal. I could create an account. And so I'm just trying to think. I guess I'll do it for my friend Eunice. And it does all the authentication like last time. So Eunice at example.com, and Eunice will be the username. And my favorite password is 123, but I'm going to change it to QWERTY for him. QWERTY. Cool. So the button changed. I now have a logout button, and I'm now showing this. And I could go to different pages if I'm quick enough, because if 20 seconds elapses, my session is over. So I could go back here, and it's carrying it across. It's still log out, and it's still his information, right? But if I wait 20 seconds, I'm pretty sure that's what I have the timer done, right? So his session is done. And then it goes back to log in. And so if I come back here, Eunice is his username, and his password was QWERTY. Blah, blah. And he's back in. Whoa. I don't know. I thought that was pretty amazing. Seems, I guess, trivial. Like, that was like a huge accomplishment for me last night. All right, keep hitting return, return, return. Go to different pages. Log in. Form login. Form login. Oh, I guess it went too fast. And then, so that's one thing. You're a tough crowd. I was thinking there might be excitement, but. Go app serve. You're excited on the inside. So this is from the boot camp, and so this is with App Engine, right? And this is the next thing. So I'm going to take what we did at boot camp, this part, and then just add this into the version we're doing now. But that's like the next thing, is having a modal come up, and then you could tweet. So that's the next thing that I want to build into it. Like I said, it takes time. All right, so you want to see the code? We left off with right here, code review. So I'm going to add another code review right here, and we'll do that down there at 28. Code review. There we go. So it's kind of like the file structure that I had. And so these files are all package main. And you could have many files in the same package. Those files just need to be in the same directory. And they all need to have package, whatever the package is at the top. And Go will see those as if they're just all in one big file. So the scope on that for anything you declare is as if it was in a file. So if I declared something up at this level right here at the package scope, that's going to be accessible in any of the files that are in package main. And right, the one thing to know is imports are file scope. So if I import stuff on this file in package main, I don't have access to those imports on some other file in package main. All right. So I broke it up into different files just to sort of, have it be a little bit clean. And then right here in the code we did code review right here. And then here is I revert to only package main. because in here I tried to abstract things into folders. And one of the things which was interesting was if I was in, so let's look at this one. One of the things which was interesting was if I was in main, I would not have access to the whatever's in API if it was lowercase, like if the folder was lowercase. That was kind of weird to me. I didn't think that was, I thought you could have lowercase folders.
You
Right.
should be able to.
Yeah.
Julian Schmidt's HTTP router is all lowercase.
Yeah, so that was weird, but like, you know, the proof's in the pudding. When the book and the bird differ, believe the book or the bird, right?
Which
But-
one works?
You need the full path when you're importing. It doesn't do local imports.
Yes and no. So if I do this, right, so there I am, that full path. Cool, I'm recognized, right? And then if I change this, API, and change this, API, and change this, API. No.
That's the package name of the sub folder.
The package name of the subfolder.
Yeah. There. It's package
Oh,
API.
it's API. Okay, that's late night right there. So that totally works.
Yep.
Okay, that totally works. Never mind. Good code review. And so the next thing is this fully qualified import path for the package name. That could create problems. And so that's why I reverted right here. And the problems it creates are important README right here. And so this is from the App Engine documentation about organizing. So it's right here, Go configuration, okay, on App Engine. And basically, if this is your Go path and you're importing a package, it'll look in your project dir, right? So if this is my project, it'll look there for the package, and then it'll look here. And so you could get like an error where it says it's trying to import it twice. And so to get around that, you have to do an import like this, right there, just the relative one. But that was kind of complicated. For whatever reason, I couldn't get that working. And so I reverted it just to having it all package main, different folders instead of using different files instead of using folders. So just looking for the recommendation. I don't know. So this is stuff that you could look at when you're like, how can you make this code better? And you could wrestle with that and see, oh, how do I organize that, right? Because that was something that, for me, I was like, oh, how do I get this organized into subfolders when this is at the same root? And so organizing Go apps and then Go configuration. So organizing Go apps actually is the main one. And their recommendation, for best results, we recommend create a separate directory in your project for each module. So this led me to start learning about modules, and I was like, okay, that's too much. I'm just going to put it all into the same files. Each module directory should contain the module's app YAML file and one or more Go files. Do not include any subdirectory in modules directory. Your Go file should import packages using fully qualified paths. Place all package code beneath source directories that are direct children of project directory under your project directory at all. And then there's Go module configuration, right, which starts to be this stuff. So when you look at this code and try to make it better, if you can figure some of this out and come back and share it with us, that'd be awesome. Because we didn't cover this at boot camp.
I only glanced lightly at modules, but from what I can tell, it's if you got multiple programs kind of that you need to run within your server, you would use separate modules. So you might have the one that's actually got the HTTP code, but then if you got some other calculation you need to do in the background, you might have that thrown into a different module. So you can look at it in more detail, but
And you could also do modules for version 1, version 2 A/B testing.
I remember I had discussed with you the fact that, due to the fact that I'm using Python 3.4 for another classes project, that I was having issues with Golang engine.
Mhm.
Well, I did find that, I didn't have any luck, like, switching files. So, I know you've probably heard of Nitrous, the cloud.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
they have Google App Engine integration and Go, and so I've used Nitrous before. So if you're online, you're not at home, and you want to use something to do Google this work, you just boot up a Nitrous box.
Yep. Yeah, Nitrous is an online IDE, includes, also has a terminal and a variety of other stuff. Caleb
And it
mentioned
lets
it.
pair programming.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can invite people to program with you.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, pair programming is good with it too. Caleb did mention it for a few people who had older Macs and couldn't get everything installed properly during the summer boot camp too. So it's
Yeah, and it already has the Google App Engine, which I like. So now I can actually deploy, and I don't have to uninstall Python.
This is basically what you want your website to look like.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That's pretty cool.
Wouldn't it? Pain in the butt, huh? That'd be like a 6-month project or more.
probably.
All right, so that's just like one of the little things which is interesting. Then here are all the steps I took to kind of get all that working, log in, log out. So, you got something to say?
Nope.
Oh. So, variable template, and then my routes, put into a init, and Julian Schmidt's router, and then handle, right, that. And then here's all of the routing. And so when a form is submitted, they're all method post. And other ones are get. And so I'm noticing I have that in there twice. But one is to, so that's a mistake on my part. Log in, got to fix that. Lower, uppercase, lowercase. We'll get that fixed. And then serving files, so I could get all of my CSS served, and then parsing all of my templates. So I have all my templates ready to go and sticking them into Temple. And then I created, just to keep things clean, created a function serve template, which you pass in the response to the request and then the name of the template. And Daniel Daniel actually said this would be cool to put your templates into Memcache. And so at the end of class last week, we did this Memcache part, or Daniel did this Memcache part right here, right? But I wanted to be able to, if it's just a template without any personalization or customization, so it's, hey, this is just the default login page, and we're not putting any data into it, so there's no username or anything like that. So we could build that once, and then we could store that in Memcache, and then the server doesn't have to rebuild that every time. And it's only when somebody's logged in and we're putting their username on the page, well, now we got to customize that page. We can't just pull something already pre-built. And so what this does is it gets the session, and if there is a session, so the value is greater than 0, the length of that, because that's a slice of bytes, then we create a variable SD, right, which is session data. And session data is this. And so here's the user. And I didn't want to just pass in the user because I thought, well, when I'm passing data to my template, I thought, well, there might be additional information that I want to pass in. And maybe it's not user information, right? And so I created a separate struct. And this is composition in Go. And you could basically embed one type in another. And so I'm embedding type user into type session data. So session data now has this struct user inside of it. And everything that is part of struct user is now promoted to session data. So I don't have to do session data.user.email. I could just do session data.email, right? And it'd be the same with methods. However, if I had method overriding, so this had a method and this had a method and they were the same method names, right? When I called session data.same method name, it would pull this one, but I could do session data.user.same method name and it'd pull that one, right? So that's cool.
Do you, what if you use the curly braces when you declare user as part of session data? You can do it without the curly braces or with?
Well, when I am going to create instance of session data, yeah, you could do it with the curly braces.
For the user, I mean, when you
right,
declare.
right here. Yes, he doesn't need to put the curly braces here because
Right
he's
here?
not putting an instance of user
Yeah.
there. He's
Okay,
saying
so
that
it's
every
saying that
session
it is a
data is
part
the
of
user.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was a question I had the other day, so okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I have a couple of tags right here. So when I store something in the data store, I don't want to store the username because the username is my key, so it's already being stored as key. And then when I JSON, whatever, Marshall, unmarshall, encode, decode, stringify. Well, this one would apply to stringify, but on the Go side, I don't want to include password in that. So that's a tag to do that. So that's where I get an instance of session data, that struct. And one of the things that's also in session data is logged in and login fail. So if login fail, if I'm on the login page, right, when I pass, because I have to pretty much pass the same data to every struct. And then I can pull out, or every template, and I can pull out, so when I'm on this page, I have this field, and every other page is just false, and we just can ignore it, not use it. But on the login page, the login was fail, I can now display failure messages, right? So here is right, I get a variable SD session data. What happens when I use var SD session data? Have I stored, is that initialized? Is SD, yeah, so SD is initialized to 0 value. And so that means that email, username, and string will all be, username and password will all be empty strings. And login and login fail will both be false. So that's what those are initialized to when I just do var. And then I unmarshal session.value. So to get the session, I pass in the request. And this is in the session.go file. And this is just stuff I wrote. This isn't like from the standard library or anything like that. And I pass in the request because I want to get the cookie. And I'm going to return a Memcache item. Right? So I'm storing my session data in Memcache. And so the cookie will have a unique ID, a UUID. And I write that. And then I'm going to get the cookie. And I'm going to look and get that unique ID. And that's going to be my key in Memcache for pulling out session data. So every request, if they have a cookie, they send me the UUID. Cool, a really unique number, right? And that allows me to know that's associated with one user. So just as if like my phone rang and I had some program running that just made everybody's voice sound the same, right? I would know who was calling me, but because they would say, this is Eunice. Oh, hi, Eunice, right? And so they're telling me who they are. It's this person. And when they tell me who they are, I could then access all kinds of records about that person. So they give me their session ID, unique ID, and I can take that ID and look in Memcache and say, is there data associated with this key in Memcache? So here I get the cookie, and if there's an error, there's no cookie, so I'm just going to return an empty struct. And that's where I was looking up empty struct because it has 0 weight, right? It's there's no size associated with it. So that's what we were seeing at the Dave Cheney article, empty struct. So I return an empty struct, and it has to be a pointer, so it's the address.
This isn't quite an empty struct. This is a Memcache item, which is not empty. It's just you're just using the 0 values for everything.
I thought that's an empty struct right there.
What Dave Cheney was talking about was a struct where the type has nothing in it.
Have you read the Dave Cheney article?
No.
I'm not. A struct with nothing in it. So there's something in here? It just looks, I thought if you do empty, there's nothing in it.
There's item. It's just setting it all to 0 value.
Oh. All right, well, good to know. I thought, well, let's just explore that for a second. Dave Cheney. Dave Cheney, empty struct.
See, this is the struct's there.
Type
so
is there, and then Q, so type is empty. And then here, though, is S, and it has fields, and then S, and that's the size of it, var S, S, okay.
Which is pretty neat.
But that's not empty right there. And then here we have an empty struct, and that's the 0. And then here we have a struct with fields, and var SS, but no curlies, right? That's what it is? And that's the size of 0?
So it's saying that the fields there
Oh,
are
are both empty.
Yeah.
There we go. And
So this would be useful for if you're using HTTP handle. Since you didn't have to have an underlying type, if it wouldn't take up space, you just have the methods free floating to fulfill an interface.
wow, all right. So then, if we do have a cookie, I'm going to get the context, and then do a memcache get, pass in the context and the cookie value. So the cookie, where am I creating my cookie would be,
You're getting cookie from the Memcache cookie, or from the request cookie.
yeah, but I want to see where I create the cookie, and it's with where the user logs in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's here in session. No. Template, model, main. It's not doc, it's API. Create user. And so you can see what the cookie looks like. Create session. There we go. So the cookie has a name is session, and the value is ID, string, so it's a UUID. So that's what the value is. So I get the UUID, and if you look at the documentation for Memcache get, get takes the context and then a key to get whatever Memcache, and returns a pointer to an item and an error. And a pointer to an item is this again, so we could have the key and then a value, which is a slice of byte, so we could have a whole bunch of string stuff in there. And then we could also put an expiration. So the way we got there again is get, right? Takes a context and then some sort of a key, context and some sort of a key, and then it returns an item or an error. An item has the key and the value, right? And the value is like whatever we're wanting to store, and then we have the expiration. So if there's an error, then Memcache, there's nothing there for that one. So we're just returning, would I say an empty item?
Yeah.
A pointer to an empty Memcache item. And then otherwise we're returning the item. So that's going to give us back access to value, which will be all the stuff we've stored for the session. And plus we could also then, you know, set the, you just walk through to that. There we go. Set the expiration on that, when we want them to log out, or how long do we want them to be logged in. And so when we talked about creating sessions, just looking for the file. When we talked about creating sessions, we're like, hey, we could do it with Google, or we could do it with Gorilla, or we could do it HMAC or no HMAC. So we're doing the no HMAC regular cookie and storing that cookie as session ID and store session data in cookie or Memcache. And we're storing it in Memcache. All right, so that's getting the session, and we get back an item, a Memcache item. And so session, get back a Memcache item. If the length of the value, because that's a slice of bytes value for the Memcache item, is greater than 0, right, then we got something back, and there's data there. And so we then create that struct, right, where we're going to be able to pass data into the template. And unmarshal session value, because I was storing in there JSON, and put it into here. And where do I see that I was storing JSON into that? So that was API. And we get a cookie. And then JSON marshal into user.
And marshal user into JSON data.
There we go. Take the user and marshal it into JSON data. And then Memcache set my JSON data as the value. How many people this is like complicated? No, it's good.
I mean, it's like easy to understand while we're sitting here, right? But actually doing it, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of components to this as well.
Yeah, a lot of pieces that have to come together. So then I set logged in to true. And so I could check that and toggle my login, logout button. And then I'm going to execute my template. And this is for template.go. This is my general serve template thing. So I execute my template response, and I passed in the template name and then the data. And so remember, on the main page, serve template is kind of like figuring out, do I want to get it from Memcache, right? Or am I going to create something personalized? And then also, I'm using that for every function, right? So, for each endpoint, same thing. So I'm passing in the name of the template. And then over here, I get the name of the template. And so here it's like, okay, whatever page I was at, it could use this abstracted functionality, right? Execute the login.html, execute signup.html, because that's what got passed in. Home, login, sign up. And those have all already been parsed, so they're accessible through template. My this deal right there. And so if there isn't already a session, I don't have to do a customized template, right? Because if it's a session, okay, now I need to be able to put your username on the page. I need to be able to change the button to log out, customize each page to you. And if it's not a session, then the next question is the page already in Memcache? If it is, because it's just a journal page that could serve to anybody, let me serve that from Memcache. And if it's not, then let me create it and put it into Memcache and then serve it. And so get a context, and then Memcache get context. I'm storing those in Memcache. The key is the template name, so whatever it was. And so if error is non-nil, so if there is an error, meaning I didn't get something from Memcache, I'm now going to put it into Memcache. So Memcache set, right? As I'm going to now get this template and put it in Memcache. So create a new bytes buffer. So package bytes, buffer, type buffer. Do you want to say something about buffers, Daniel? Explain that.
Yeah, well, the bytes buffer is basically just a place. It follows the. I know it follows the writer interface. Does it follow the reader interface too? I'm not sure. Whatever the case may be.
I think it does.
Whatever the case may be, yeah, you can use buffer there as a way of as another place to write to. Since execute template requires the writer, being able to write to your own. To a buffer in memory instead of having to write to across the response will then let you store it into the Memcache.
So buffers are kind of like, just when I think about things from the most basic standpoint, it allows me to buffer something, right? Like, and buffering meaning like, hey, too much is coming at me. I need to, control how much is coming in or be able to handle what's coming in. And so it's like one way I think about buffers, just like in general English terms, like I'm buffering, the information coming to me personally. The second way I think about buffers, is like in relation to like printers, the print buffer or whatever. So my computer needs to print something, and it will like send it to the buffer, and then that's spooling and puts it all in the buffer, and then the computer puts all of the code for the document that it needs to print over into the buffer, and then the printer will read from that and draw from that, right? And the computer can go on, like all that process code for printing is over here in the buffer, and the computer just the printer pulls from that as it needs it, right? Prints one page, prints the next, but the CPU can go on and do other stuff because it's already processed the print job and stuck it all into the buffer. And so a buffer is kind of like a place where you could stick stuff, right? Like, or you could handle like, put a whole bunch of data over here and then you could pull from it when you want. So that's just sort of my understanding of buffers. Is that your guys' understanding of buffers?
Yeah, what is the underlying, is it just an underlying like slice of bytes?
It's got a few extra flags, but yeah, it's pretty much just a slice of bytes underneath.
Anybody have another way they think about buffers? Or I'm sure you guys have learned this in some of your other programming classes, but I come to programming via a different path where I didn't study comp sci. So no? All right, cool. So then I get IO multi-writer, and so multi-writer will allow you to write to more than one location. And so basically, if we look at multi-writer here, right? Multi-writer, right? Takes a slice of bytes and returns an int. And that's not it. Multi-writer right here. Multi-writer is a struct, writers, slice writer. So this doesn't allow me to explain it the way I was just thinking about it. But, wow, I thought there'd be multi-writer, write.
There's probably a new multi-writer.
A slice of writers. Multi-writer, here we go, that's what I'm looking for. So how's that connected?
That's a function that will create.
Yeah, okay, so capital multi-writer. So that's the one I want.
Yep.
So multi-writer creates a writer that duplicates its write to all the provided writers, similar to the Unix T1 command. I have no idea what the T1 command is in Unix. Do you guys? You ever worked with that?
No.
Just a way to direct output to a different
Directing.
location. If you had something that outputted to the screen, you could T is an old way of doing it, but now you just use like a greater than symbol, and then you specify a text file or something, and it'll put all output to a text file instead of do that for a class.
Yeah, the greater than symbol, no problem, right? Like dump it to the text file, but this basically you could put writers, right? Like a variadic, so you could give it as many writers as you want, and then it returns a writer, and it's going to write to all those different writers. And so here we want to write to both the response and to buff. So we create a multi-writer, and then when I use execute template, right, I got to give it a writer. So now it's going to write to both the response and the buff. So I'm writing like I'm executing this template and giving it to the client, but I'm also sticking it into buff, and then I'm taking buff and I'm sticking that into Memcache. Does that make sense? Ah, that's cool, huh? Isn't that cool? That's Daniel. The first sign of excitement is for Daniel's code. I'm disappointed, man. I worked really hard. I wanted you guys to be like a little bit impressed. So execute the template, write to both the response and the buffer, and the template name, and then session data is just nothing, right? So I'm just still passing that in. And then setting Memcache context, and then a new Memcache item, where the value is, the bytes. So you needed to the value of a Memcache set. Set is context, and then item, and hold on.
An item.
We'll get there, yeah. But here, value is buff bytes, right? And so we're giving it context and then item, right? That's what set takes. Context. It takes context and item. And then I'm always like a little concerned. I'm gonna like drag and drop something and screw up the standard library, and I'm gonna have to reinstall. And then so then the item here, right? Because that's the set takes an item, and then with the item, the value's got to be a slice of bytes. And so here I'm saying, you know what? This page, right, that I put in the buffer, make it a slice of bytes, and the key in Memcache will be the template name. So if I came back here and I asked for it again, it's like, oh, cool, that template that has no personalization, no customization on it, that I could serve to anybody, it's in Memcache. My server doesn't have to reprocess it, right? Saves a micro millinanosecond of performance. But this functionality right here, I thought that was pretty innovative. You know, like being able to abstract and generalize for any template a function that takes a response request and the template name, and then it will run the logic to see, do I need to customize this template for a user, and is it personalized? Yes or no? And if it's no, okay, can I get that template from Memcache and save a little performance? Yes or no? And if it's no, okay, well, let me put that template into Memcache and then also serve it to the person. So next time somebody else comes there, I could just pull it from Memcache. I thought, well, that's pretty creative. I don't know if that, and that's where I'm like, I don't know if this is right or wrong, right? Like, you know, I don't know, but I kind of think that's a cool thing. And probably if I had somebody who was like, you know, when I was learning other stuff, like when I was learning Access back in the late back in the late 90s, and I worked at the Real Estate Land Use Institute out here at Fresno State, and we had to crunch all this real estate data, and so we used Access and Excel and, you know, Word, and we'd produce this report, the Real Estate Land Use Institute report. But my mentor in that was like an Access black belt. And if I wish I had a mentor like that, you know, here, 'cause, you know, there would be times where I do something in Access and Don would be like, well, what are you doing? That's too complicated. It doesn't make a difference, just like this. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
This will save a small amount of time for most web sites. That's not going to be a problem. For like Google, like the main Google homepage, they definitely have something like this in their site. I mean, there's so many people that access the main Google webpage every second of every day that anything they can do to decrease the load on their servers is worth it. Because it may only be saving a millisecond every time, but a millisecond times 100,000 users, that's 100 seconds.
I never thought of that. That's why it's so damn plain. I'm guessing. 'Cause
Yeah.
it is, right? And
Yeah.
unless the browser has its own like,
Yeah.
spiffed up version.
Yeah,
of
yeah, the main Google webpage is
It
very
is.
simple.
The box and Google.
Yeah, because they get so many people all at once, they need to make it as fast as they can. I believe that the main Google webpage also uses AJAX calls, so it can determine what order everything loads in. It's like the main Google logo, that loads last. It'll get the search box up first.
You just
Yeah. So,
And you could see that by throttling, you know. So there's a way you could go in here, and somewhere I think it's in mobile, you could do network throttling. So we could crank this down to like 50 kilobits a second, or even less, and then we could load the page and just see what comes up. That's still really fast.
you're not on Google yet. This is your new tab page.
Oh, I need to go Google? There we go. There's search box.
Yeah, it's like getting stuff in the corners, and now there comes the logo.
That is pretty cool.
It's totally cool.
I used to like hate that about Google because I wasn't always interested in just searching. I wanted their other shit. You know, I
Yeah.
always had to go pick other shit. So. Oh well, now I know why they do that.
Yeah, they want that search box up as fast as they can because that's what most people want
Hey, look at what happens if you go from mobile to desktop.
without reloading.
I just broke Google. That's awesome. Of course, you have to be very obtuse and be doing really esoteric things. But and then finally, if I did have it in Memcache, right? So this is all if error. If there is an error, meaning I didn't get it from Memcache, there's an error. If I did get it from Memcache, then just take the value of Memcache, which is a slice of bytes, turn it into a string, and write that back. Whoa. So that's all this part. But that's a lot of it. And I got to fix this login screw up right here. They're different case though, so I wonder if that, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But I've got the same endpoint, which no, they're form and
Different
API.
endpoint.
So I just need to change this name. And I'll just do this login process, like process login. There we go. So what's the next thing which is cool to see about this? Anybody have any questions?
Why do you have two handles for logging?
Two handles for
Logging.
this one and this one. So this one is at form login, and this one is API login. So this one, form login, is right here, and it's going to serve the login page. That's a great question. That was a great question. And so let's look at the login page. And the login page is basically, form, and the action on the form is to go process that. And so I just sent it, like if there's something that's not going to be like shown to the client, it's just functionality, I just, in my own structuring of my code, said that's all going to be under a path API, right? And so then this gets submitted to API login, and the method is post. And so here the method is post, and it's API login, so it runs login process. And then login process is just going to take care of the entire login, and then do something, right, like redirect once they're logged in. And so the login process, get a context, and I'm going to create a new key, and I'm asking the client for their username, right, and also their password. And so the key I create is, okay, get the key for the username, because that's what I store my users as. So kind user in the data store is stored with the key of username. So give me that key, and then I create a variable of user. So this isn't something where I'm passing into the a template. So I'm not using when I look at my model. And so when you improve this code, you might rename stuff, and then you might be like, I renamed model to this because model really should be that, and it's only when you're connecting to databases, not just when you're defining data structures, right? So you might change model and then say to the class and me, this is why. I'm no expert. I'm just trying to learn. But so I did here, session data is just when I'm passing data to the template, and then user, right, is like, for user stuff. So here at login, I create a user, and then I do data store get, and I get all that information from, because that's what I'm putting in the data store is the user stuff, right? I get all that and I stick it into the variable user, and then if there is an error, so I didn't get something from the data store, right? So, and there's different ones you could do, from the data store, like more specific, but I just said catch any error, right? Or if the form value password doesn't equal the password that's stored in data store, right? Then there's a failure logging in, and so I create session data, and I do session data login fails true, and I execute the template. So here, I kind of had a little bit of a quandary because I've got this functionality here with serve template, and then I was like, okay, well, how do I serve the template and pass in, login failed true, set that, and I was like, you know what? That's the easiest solution. I'm just executing the template right there,
Separate them, yeah.
because there's something about like how, because then I would need to start to pass somehow pass SD to this serve template function. Right, I need to receive that here because I've set it over there that it's now true. I'd have to have SD coming in here that login fail was true, right? And then use all that. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. You probably have a good solution for that, or maybe not.
Ish.
So that's a login process right there, and otherwise, I get the username from the form since they didn't fail the login, and I set that to my username. and then I create a session. So this thing here, create a session. We'll see that. We haven't seen that fully.
In detail.
No. And so I create a session right there, and then I just redirect. And because I've created a session, when I redirect to the home, right, all this stuff has happened. So I create a session where, context, get a new context, get a new ID, create a cookie where the name is session and the ID is, the UUID turned into a string. This took 2 to 3 hours of my life last night. That right there. How many people know what that does? Raise your hand. I'm thinking your hand might go up because you do web programming day in and day out, and you too. What does that do? Do you guys know? Because if I give you both value, I feel good. Like I've taught you something new, and this is what you do day in and day out for your job. Do you guys know what that does? What? I know it's pretty self-explanatory when you read it, but have you worked with that before? You have. Yes and yes? Oh, you guys are like, this is basic, Todd. I do this all day long.
It adds it?
So explain why I need to do that. Why did I need to do that? Am I putting you on the spot too much? I'm sorry. What about you? Do you know? Why did I need to do that?
Oh, you do know?
You don't know?
You're creating a cookie, but why do you need that slash?
Because create session is being called by login process. Login process occurs when I am at API login, which means my cookie is now set at this sort of domain with that path, not at my root. You need to set your cookie. Your cookie is accessible from whatever place in your domain down, right?
So you want to move it up to the top.
Right? And so here, my cookie is at localhost 8080/API/, and anything there or further down in the directory structure, so to speak, that I put past, my cookie is accessible. My cookie is not accessible at root. I set my cookie, I go to root, there's no cookie. So this says, you know what? Don't set the cookie, don't just take the default location where I'm at to set the cookie at the root. And now my cookie is accessible throughout the whole site. 2.5 hours of my life.
Were you setting it at the other path first and couldn't find it, or what?
Yeah, you want to see that in action. Here is set cookie no path. Let's see it, because that's kind of fun. Set cookie no path. And so I just got to figure out where my cookie's getting set. So check username, probably Memcache, user creation, and create user, and set cookie no path, right? And create user is being called sorry, it's just slightly different structure. Yeah, organization. Where's create user being called? And this explains the entire thing about cookies, and that was a good article. Doesn't explain what I just said there. To create cookie, what is it called? It's create user. I think it's here. Here. So it'd be sign up. So here's sign up. So log in, sign up, mem template, and mem template.
No, it's Memcache templating stuff.
Well, obviously the problem comes in when you try to find it later, right?
Yeah. Go back to main. Create user.
Oh, there we
Where's
go.
that?
API create user.
Yeah.
So create user is probably coming off of one of my form submissions. And so it's either going to be sign up, but it's probably log in. And no, that just goes there. Sign up. API create user, sign up. Okay? So there it is. So let's see this run. So create user is the part, and I'm just setting the cookie to wherever I happen to be, which is going to be at API create user. So I need to run it, and I am in change directory 56. Well, let's go to this one. Change directory up a level, and we're in 21. Go app serve. Okay, log in, create account, and test, and Daniel, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let's clear all these out and do that again so we can see it. Can I just do that? There we go. Right? But I'm at API,
Yeah, there's the path.
and there's the path, API. And when I go to here, what? Right, there's some cookie there already. But when I go back to API, like that cookie's there. But if I go to my root, I'm setting some other cookie, but that other one's not there. Right, this is a different cookie. This cookie here, some value user creation, it's called my cookies. And then this one here is just my cookie some value. And so that is, you know, I fix that right here where I give it the path. So back to this, and I think that was, we're not there.
API.
API, thank you. And then this could also throw you off in development, right? Like if you do secure in HTTP, then you're not going to see your cookie because you're not localhost on App Engine when you're building it, serving secure. But when you deploy it, you could have secure and HTTP only. And then why both of those? Secure is pretty obvious, like it's only going to serve it over HTTPS. You could come back here like to this one here, and I think I have it there. And I thought this was a really nice article about why both of those. So here's the resource to that article, and then here's the information about doing, you know, HTTPS with a secure flag, and then also HTTP only, and how HTTPS with the secure flag prevents people from hijacking your session because the session ID is encrypted as it's transmitting over the wire, so people can't grab it. And HTTP only flag prevents, so let me see, HTTP only prevents cross-site scripting, so you can't run JavaScript and read the cookie because once it's on the client's machine, it's no longer encrypted, I think, right? It's received and unencrypted. But it doesn't prevent this, but most browsers, well, browsers built today don't worry about that. That's what the article said. You could read it. You have anything you want to add? Seems like you're instantly assimilating all that. Good.
That looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
When you send a cookie with HTTPS, when it gets to the client's machine, is it still encrypted or it gets decrypted at the client's machine? Because it's the client's machine decrypts and then displays, right?
Yeah, decrypts and saves it, yeah.
Yeah, so then it would just be the UUID. The client would see the UUID, not the encrypted.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
I have like...
So yeah, secure means it's got to be HTTPS. Don't send it over as plain HTTP. And that includes when it's coming back to the server when it's sending it. And the HTTP only means that make sure that the JavaScript doesn't get access to this. This is just between the client, the web browser, and the server only. Don't let the scripts fiddle with it.
So then we have setting the Memcache. So we get the cookie, and JSON Marshall. So we are getting JSON, and we're taking the user and we're turning it into JSON, right? And have we done anything with the user yet? No. So whereas when we use create session, like right here, we're passing in the user, and then here is the user, and we got it from the data store. But if there's an error, meaning nothing is in the data store, otherwise there was something in the data store. So we got that data from the data store, we stuck it into user, and then we passed it over here to create session. And then, we've stored a cookie with a unique ID, and then we're taking their user information, turning it into JSON. We're going to stick that into Memcache, right? I actually think that, like, if somebody was to explain, like, what programming entails, nobody would do it. Like, whoa, that's like a lot to trace right there. But I guess, every job's got its intricacies. And then once you get more accustomed to it, it's kind of fun. Just like starting, I don't know, like I feel my mind starting to like understand how all that stuff's connected more. That's kind of cool. So here I have, I set on the Memcache item an expiration, time duration of 20 seconds. If you look at the documentation, and Eunice and I were talking about this driving into work, because we live near each other and we were riding together, and if you look at the documentation on duration, nowhere in there when I read that does it indicate to me that this is what I'm supposed to do, that this is how I use it, right? And so, I read the documentation, I'm like, I don't know what the hell that's talking about. Logically, it makes sense when I read it, right? Like, I need a duration, I want it to be 20 seconds. That totally makes sense when I read it. That's straightforward, what's the problem with that? But when I look at the documentation, time duration, a duration represents the lapsed time between two instants as int 64 nanosecond count. The representation limits the largest representable duration to approximately 290 years. Okay, right? So I have type duration, and this is from package time, so time duration. I almost think I need 0.1 and 0.2. And if I look at the documentation for, go doc /time, and look at duration, they have an example here, and that's what they do in their example, which is cool, right? Time now is T0, time now is T1, some expensive call, and then printf, the call took %v to run, and then T1 sub T0, so what does sub do, right? And then I come up here and look at sub. Speaking of which, there's something interesting in the news about subs. I don't know if you saw it yesterday in the news, but and then time sub right here returns a duration. Right, so basically, okay, I'm getting a duration back. It's the time between 2 points, But like nowhere in there would I get the idea that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do with it. I could just drop in. Do you guys see somewhere in there that I'm missing? That? All right, you show me so I can learn. Where did duration go? There you go. Daniel's driving, awesome.
It gives it to you in nanoseconds.
Yeah, it's something. Time
So
duration.
here's one.
It's kind of hidden again.
Prince it,
Yeah.
yeah, there it is. Convert it to,
So yeah, because seconds is an int or whatever here. This particular seconds here is an int. So got to convert that to duration, and then a duration times another duration is still a duration, which you can then print.
Oh, that's a cool way to do it. Duration times duration is still duration. Anyhow. Genius level. The way I found that, and I'll just show you my level, github.com, and then I went to Goes to 11, and then I went to Summer Boot Camp, and I said, search this repository, duration. So like here's a bunch of code from like Caleb, and I said, I just want to see the Go code, right? So there's the Go code, and then it was like, sweet, baby, that's how I use it. Right? So that's another way. Some people learn, 10% of people I've heard learn from theory, 90% learn from doing. I'm one of the doing people. I'm in the 90%, like I actually got to see it and do it. So that's setting Memcache, and then we have Logout. So you could, if you're watching this online, look at the logout, but basically it's pretty easy. Context, and then ask for a cookie, and if the cookie's not set, then there's no session, so I just redirect. So if there's an error, somehow somebody got there and they didn't know what the they typed it in manually or something. And then Memcache item, SD, where's SD coming from? I'm creating a Memcache item. It's my session data, and I'm getting the cookie value. So I'm getting the Memcache item, right, by this key and getting all that. And I'm setting expiration to 1 microsecond. And I'm setting Memcache, which is probably a better way to destroy it, but that's how I did it. And then there is a cookie, so I'm setting max age to less than 1, because with a cookie, well, that's not what I want. I want this. With a cookie, max age less than 0 means destroy this cookie, delete this cookie now. And so that's where I'm killing the cookie, and I'm setting the cookie, and then I'm redirecting back to home. So that's a logout.
In that first redirect to view statement, shouldn't you normally have a return after that?
Yeah, you're right. That's actually one of my questions, though. If I redirect, do I just leave this function out, or that runs all the way through unless I hit a return?
You have to make a return.
You got to do a return.
Yeah, you're filling
Thank
up
you,
the response. All your calls that send stuff to response, you're filling out the response, and it's when the function ends that the HTTP library now can send the response across the wire. So your HTTP redirect is saying, okay, we've got this response. Let's fill it out with all the necessary things required for the web browser to redirect. And then once you get out of the function, now HTTP library says, okay, we've got the response filled out. Let's send the response to the client, and then the client can read that redirect.
We got 4 minutes. So we've looked at check username. We've looked at API, right, which is check username, and has check username. So that's for that JavaScript thing that we looked at the other day, right? Where does that username exist? And then we created a user with create session, and so that was in sign up, and so we saw that the other day. And then we process a login, which we just saw, and we've abstracted creating a session into this, which we saw, and we've done logout, which we saw. Doc.go, you could put documentation for your package in its own file. It's in package main, but you just do the documentation right at the top. And here's where I'm explaining a little bit about that and resources to doing that. Main.go is the routes and then calling it, and we had this thing to serve template. Model was the data. Session, right, was just where I get a session. I maybe would have done this under API. I could have gone there too, but we saw this about getting a session, get the cookie, right, and then so request cookie, session, cookie, right, if there's an error, return empty Memcache item, and then context get Memcache and give it the cookie value. If there's an error, return an empty Memcache item, and if not, right, just logging a little info there and returning the Memcache item that we got from right here. So that's getting the session info from Memcache and pulling it out based upon the key we set in the cookie. And then here's the abstracted template thing. So we got through all that code. We got 2 minutes left. I am totally hammered with work this week. So like last night I started prepping this class at about 10 and I went to bed at 4:30. And I did everything from this point from code review. I did all that forward. So on Thursday, you all have to come in with one improvement you'd make to this code, and you have to be ready to present it. You guys are presenting on Thursday, right? And so you'll come up, you'll bring up your GitHub repo and said, I brought this down, and here's something I changed about this code. You could change the current code and just change something in here, even if it's as simple as I added a return. You left the return out, Todd. Right? Cool, you're done. Sit back down. You came up and you showed one thing to make it better. Or it could be you could take it to the next level. I took this code and now I've also done the modal thing, which I grabbed from here, and I added that in so you could post tweets and see tweets. You have to be ready to present on Thursday. I'm not talking Thursday. I've got too much going on this week. So you guys come in ready to present and one improvement that you'd make to this code base, all right? And you'll just come up to my laptop, bring up your GitHub, and then show it. So you just got to have one thing ready to go. That's it. I'll see you guys Thursday.